Hi. Okay, so I don't even know what day I'm on with this live thing. I think maybe day 4. I switched the topics around. Today I was going to talk about meditation, but I'm actually going to probably flip that to Monday because I just need a little bit more time to prepare on that one. But so today I'm going to be talking about mood and so yeah, I guess let me backtrack a little bit. So, because I know that I've actually gotten a little bit newer people in the audience. So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Drea. I am a fashion designer and I do interiors and specifically art framing and art. I own an art gallery in San Francisco, and the type of fashion I do is all custom design, but I also do, hi sis, so great to see you. I love you. So yeah, the type of fashion I do is all custom at this point, but I'm working on a line that will come soon. I'm also designing for a fashion startup called Jumper, and that's all jumpsuits and rompers, and that will have actually 2 rompers coming out this month. And one of those rompers, I'm designing both of the rompers, and one of those rompers is going to have kimono sleeves. So that's the secret you get. Thank you, sis. Yeah, so cool. I'll talk about the blouse when I get into mood. Thank you. So, yeah, so there's the little secret for showing up to my live cast early. You're the first to know that I'm designing a romper with kimono sleeves, which I think is going to be just super nice for summer. And so that's a little bit about what I do. And why I'm doing this cast is because I've been writing contents of a book on personal style, and I've filtered in kind of all of my experience into this concept of personal style development. And it's very comprehensive because my undergraduate is in molecular biology, so I studied how the body works on pretty much every scale possible, down to your DNA, down to your atoms. And so that was really the start of my obsession of details, was my degree in like essentially genetics and stuff. So, but that also gave me like an understanding, coupled with dance, of how I studied dance since I was 3 years old, on how the body works, and also a sense of creative self-expression of how the body works and how you can communicate like something like physical into something like emotional and artistic. So that was kind of my entire idea then, 10 years ago, 15 years ago now. And then I studied my MFA in fashion design, and that, which is still in progress, and it's taking me 4 years to get a master's, but it's totally worth it because it's been like a creative journey. So and I've come so far. So now I am finding like all of the connections between how you create like inspiration, or you translate inspiration and the details and the science of the world, and you create it into something new. And I think more and more I'm going for like challenging like things that are outdated and not working, and just challenging kind of for a better world and having innovation. And so I will definitely be getting like deeper and deeper into that as this live cast goes. But so yeah, that's kind of a little hint of what's to come. So, and it does kind of relate to mood, because so in this process of defining your personal style, I hope that you can start to see some of like how your personal style has always been an underlying part of you, and how certain things you have always maybe connected with or interested in or passionate about, and maybe some of these have stuck with you throughout like the core of your life. And so in part of developing your personal style, you are meant to kind of go and observe and look at things in a new light, and actually be like, okay, maybe this is just really a strong thing that I connect to and I find really like personal to me, and it really makes me happy and confident. And that's what design does, is that you can take something like that and you can translate it into an actual thing, which is your personal style and how you express yourself and how you present yourself. So what I've done today is I have finally like gotten to printing out a number of images that are what I'm going to start to use to start developing my overall mood, developing my overall aesthetic. So I will show you. So the first thing I looked to, I talked about it a couple times already in the cast, and those are style icons. So style icons are people throughout history that have represented style of that time, and something like really unique and really like that it just attracted a lot of attention, but also was like representative of what was going on in that period of history. But they also just carried a certain composure or a certain like personality that was just really strong and really unique to them. So you can look at style icons and find ones that connect with you, and you can print out images of them for your sketchbook. The thing that I challenge you for style icons though is it's really easy to get into the habit of going into Google image search and being like, oh, I just love that picture of this person who I've never heard of and I have no connection with, which is fine. If you see a image that inspires you, that's fine. You should look into it. You should definitely go ahead and use that as a source of inspiration, but do the background research behind that image. Find out the history, find out some of the like details, like find out its context, and then see if it still connects to you on a deeper level, and then ask yourself, why does this connect to me? Why is this something that I'm so attracted to? And just really try to connect the dots, because I mean, it just gives you a more perspective on yourself and what your personal preferences are, but it also gives you a sense of integrity to where the inspiration is coming from. So for the style icon, I picked Katharine Hepburn, which you see I also have picked Elizabeth Taylor for Cleopatra, but I'm going to talk about, actually I already put some of these images into my sketchbook. So this image of Katharine Hepburn is a perfect example of mood, because, and basically when you're doing mood boards, sometimes it's fun that your entire mood board is just one image that is so good that it captures like the entire feeling in and of itself. And this would be an image that I think could represent that, because it's got the hard lighting, it has so much expression in her face, and it even starts to tell a story in the detailing of the clothes, of some of like, this is actually gold fabric. There are kind of color renditions of this outfit that she wore, and so it's actually gold and white. So, or yeah, it's like a gold sequin-y sort of like overlay. And so, yeah, this is the perfect example of just creating a feeling in one image that evokes something in you that's maybe a little bit more than just a neutral emotion. Like, I know I get like a lot of just like thoughtfulness and just darkness as well, and like so that's why it appeals to me, because I've talked a little bit about the concept of edgy and surrealism. So I really like seeing like kind of that darker parts of like your emotional spectrum, I guess, within imagery. To me is a little bit more inspiring than something just light and bright. But if something light and bright is inspiring to you, you can go in that direction. For me, I'm definitely going in the darker direction, more or less on purpose. The other reason why I really like Katharine Hepburn as a style icon is because So I see a couple people are just hopping on, and I'm talking about style icons in general. You don't have to pick Katharine Hepburn, but I did for myself, and I'm going to explain why further. Is that she was she was very witty and pushed boundaries with confidence. In her time period, women were not wearing pants, and she was kind of one of the first icons to wear pants. And that's why I like her for my personal style, because I really love her mixture of like deep femininity with tailoring, which is often what I go for since I have studied traditional tailoring techniques. And the tailoring is kind of really important for me in terms of technique and classic style, but finding a sense of femininity even with the menswear is something that I aspire to do in my own designs and styles. So that's why another reason why I've picked her. And then of course I can't not with the black and white. Yeah, I'm obsessed with black and white color blocking, so of course I picked this image of her. So then, yeah, I mean, I love the old Hollywood for style icons just because I grew up in California, and I find like that time period was just so elegant and ornamental, and just this really kind of high and like almost ethereal, but just elegant and detailed style of clothing. And you still have almost like the metamorphosis from like old classic and like even corsetry, or just like all of that metamorphosis from when women went from wearing like corsets and dresses into like menswear and tailoring, all happened like kind of throughout the course of Hollywood. So I think it's just really captured very well through like the 20s to the 40s. Of course, you can find your own time period that you really find relevant. I also love the 60s because I love the mod and the optics, and I've done some projects around like mod styling and optic styling, so I draw from that a lot too. But I find that like the Art Deco and in the 20s, which I printed out this picture of, the geometric lines, the black and gold, I find Art Deco really relevant to minimalism because it was so much about geometry and and shapes, and I love like the color waves in Art Deco. So for me, that's another art movement that I pull in for my mood. So when I consider mood for personal styling, apart from just like a designer mood, so that's probably the first thing I should have shared with you, but the definition of mood in design is like the overall flow or feeling of something. So it's the overall story. It's just like your general first impression, but you have to be very articulate with the imagery you choose so that you get a clear impression. So it's just a very like visual way of representing your goal through a design or a project. How I consider it a little bit different in personal styling is it is your personality and kind of the essence of who you are on a level of like, yeah, your personality or your emotions, or so you can start to see mood carried out. That's why I'm kind of showing you some of these images that inspire me, and I'm going to show you now how they kind of relate to some images that I've taken myself, and how by doing this process you can start to see kind of how you look at the world in relationship to imagery that inspires you. So I just showed you, sorry, I did mean to cut these out for you, but I didn't have time, so maybe I could talk and cut at the same time. How does that sound? So yes, back to collage techniques, which I showed you yesterday. Just be very careful with where your fingers are when using an X-Acto blade. Alright, so here we go. this is an Art Deco image that inspires me because of the sense of geometry and the colors. And now I drop my, grab that. I'm going to show you an image of Art Deco that I found in the city and how it relates to me a little bit more in modern times. I just want to show you guys side by side because I want you to see the correlation. Okay, so this is just a print that I took off the internet, and then this is a picture that I took of kind of the Art Deco detailing. And so kind of where I'm going with this, as well as I go to a lot of shows, so I'm really inspired by the relations of shapes to color, and I'm trying to figure out a way to bring in something like a gold print with like something with neons and like the magentas and the blues. So I actually have another of images that I've all taken, all these that represent kind of where I'm going with like the minimalism, some of like the geometric shapes, but with like these really electric magentas and blues. So these are all ways that I have looked to play with negative space and light. And this one is back to, as I first shared, like kind of the dancing, but with like geometric shapes as well. And then, so yeah, these are like the types of elements that I'm trying to funnel in and find a relationship with, because some of them are kind of far between, but it's finding a way to get that and kind of consolidate it into one thing that is like your, I guess, aesthetic or style. And so it's a little bit tricky. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work yet, and that's why I'm spending a month on this. So and then I have like some travel pictures. So I have like this picture of when Matt and I went to the Egypt, and so even then I was starting to look into like geometry and like ornate and gold shapes, and this is like a picture we took in Barcelona. So just all of these details are like things that I love and have noticed and observed in the world around me, and then that I find that they kind of correlate to the same things that inspire me, which is like old Hollywood and like Cleopatra. And so those are the types of ways that you can start to look for in like developing a mood, developing themes, developing what is really interesting to you and what you really relate to on a personal level, and just start connecting dots kind of in really different ways. And I think it is a challenge when you start to do this. You realize like you as a person is like very complex, and you might have a lot of things that inspire you, and so the challenge is to really figure out what inspires you the most. But if some of the things that inspire you are not necessarily cohesive visually, like how are you going to figure out how to mash them up together? 'Cause, I mean, if you look at like these images I've sourced, I'm a little bit all over at this spectrum now. So I'm going to show you a couple more examples of mood, and then I think that's about the topic for today. So this is, I pulled some images from the magazine, so this is a very fresh editorial. So this is Celine. Celine is like what I aspire to be, because it's so chic and French and like clean and it's just like kind of more than I could even fathom for myself technique wise. But so this is like a great example of like an overall feeling like within an image, and like an overall type of personality and an overall like type of woman. I talked about when I did the Pinterest board, kind of the type of woman that you want to be, and like how I personally identify with like this concept of like a boss lady, but you could identify with something like totally different, like a boho or more casual or more like country or rustic or contemporary, or like, so these are all just different kind of types of stylization that you can identify with. So Celine is an example of like a very chic and clean line, like, and very high end and like very clean and forward directional design. So that's one mood. This is where I'm like, oh my gosh, I could just get like criticized by my teachers for talking about this, just because it's fashion is hard to wrap your mind around sometimes. And whenever you look into like a brand, you have to essentially know what you're talking about. And I'm still, learning, so. I wanted to show you these also. These are the Saint Laurent. So this is also a good example of a totally different type of mood. This is more edgy, like more dark, like hard lighting, but still very classic in some ways. Just like down here with kind of like the tailoring and but also just a little bit more kind of like, I guess, like stylized, like it's kind of and like a little bit of the tailoring, but very sleek and also like more edgy. So I wanted to show you one more example of mood, then I think I'll stop before I just have someone. Okay, here's the last one. So the last one I wanted to show you was Ralph Lauren, because Ralph Lauren is also like a pretty like elegant brand, but it is a different type of person again. Like Ralph Lauren is just very like kind of American, and it does like all have like the other two brands I showed you a lot of the use of like tailoring, but it's just a little bit more kind of streamlined, a little more like elegant, a little bit more like kind of that all American like country sort of feeling. So it's just like a little bit brighter, a little bit more of kind of this refined sort of thing. So that's just another example of mood. So I want you now to think about your relationship to like your personality and the way you view the world, and kind of how your emotions work as well, and how your emotions connect to things that you observe visually, or your experiences too, because those are all part of what starts to define you as an individual. And if you can start to connect the dots like visually with what you experience to what inspires you, and find essentially correlations between like things that you like, or things that inspire you, or things that you are drawn to or have a connection with, and actually like how you are experience your life and the choices you make, then things can kind of almost merge together and find, this kind of common ground of like who you are and like what you enjoy. And so there is like a technique to it, but it is actually why I am covering meditation as well as part of this series, is that it is almost kind of an emotional practice, or it's just a sense of finding out who you are and your identity, that is like kind of part of the process. But because, I'm probably repeating myself a little bit, but I've noticed that some people have just recently logged on, so I'm just going through like the main point of this is that you are trying to connect everything together within your experience, so that you can find the strongest thing of what you really relate to, and really just bring that forward and start to edit out things that you relate to the least. And then if you find like new things that are just part of your life so much, how can you funnel that in and incorporate it all into something that is still cohesive and still like true to you? So that is what we will continue to cover, but there you go. So thank you everyone for logging on. There is a downloadable PDF that is free for you if you sign up for my newsletter, which is, I'll just type that into the comments again. It shows bullet points of everything we're going to cover in my live cast. So you can look ahead and just see like how intense it's going to get, because I'm talking about luxury and I'm talking about like your values and stuff, but I'm talking about how to be fashion forward, and so you can look ahead if you want to do that. And then I think that's it for there. I feel like there's like one more announcement, but whatever, I'll just announce it tomorrow, so because I'm doing this every day. So all right, thank you everyone.